Hello, thank you for being in a new video. This time I have with you the review of the HUAWEI Watch Fit 3. Let's get started. This smartwatch from HUAWEI may be one of the most popular of the moment due to its adjusted price, its excellent design, and the fact that they have changed for a slightly more square design, abandoning the vertical design they had a few generations ago. So honestly, it's a very nice watch that works very well, although in a moment I'm going to tell you little by little everything it can and can't offer you. But first, let me tell you about its price, which at its launch was 2,999 Mexican pesos. That's approximately 177. Although remember that prices here are not the same as over there. However, at the moment, HUAWEI is applying a promotion. So your price is 2,099. I think it is a very competitive price considering all that it offers us and the good design. But before we go any further, I want to talk to you about compatibility because I think it can be a very recurrent doubt regarding this watch, taking into account that HUAWEI cell phones have certain restrictions and this kind of things and could generate doubts. So this watch is compatible with Android, with iOS, and obviously with HUAWEI, but despite being compatible with the three operating systems, we will find some differences in the operation that I will tell you throughout the video. But in essence, the vast majority of functions are available in the three ecosystems. But I must tell you that if you have an Android, you might have a slightly more complicated installation because in HUAWEI the application comes already installed. In iPhone you download it from the App Store, but in Android you must download it from an external browser. So you must authorize the installation of applications from external sources, and since you installed it, you have to enable a permission that is a little hidden inside the application settings. In the corner there are three buttons, and there is a special permission that you need to enable to give it authorization to read your notifications. Then, on Android, the process is a little more complex unless you have a Xiaomi, because in the Xiaomi App Store called Get Apps, HUAWEI Health is available. So from there you can download it and you will not have to enable strange permissions. Or also, if you have a Galaxy, from the Galaxy Store is also available HUAWEI Health, and you can install the application without too much hassle. But if you have an Android that is not Xiaomi or Samsung, you might get to have a little more difficulty for the whole setup. Just so you know, it's not something impossible, it's not something exaggeratedly difficult either. But you do need to know that it requires a little more knowledge to be able to set up your watch. In HUAWEI, the experience will be super easy because as soon as you turn on the watch, it will be detected by the cell phone. And on iPhone, the experience is also quite simple. Having clarified all this, remember that throughout the review I will tell you about features that are only in a certain system. So let's get started. Let's start by talking about the design, which, as I indicated, now opts for a square screen. Although it is not an exact square, then we could say that it is a rectangle with very square proportions. Obviously the cover will be made of glass, although in this case, being the cheapest version of all HUAWEI watches, does not include any special protection of sapphire or something similar. But something important is that it comes with curves around the screen that make the device look much more premium. It honestly looks like a much more expensive accessory than it actually is. The back cover will be made of plastic. In this case, we will not find ceramic or some more advanced material that we usually find in more expensive watches from HUAWEI. And as you notice, on the right side we will find two buttons. A button that we can map to start some exercise. In fact, a microphone is also present. And finally, another button that is also a digital crown, which in fact is another unusual element in such inexpensive watches. It honestly gives the feeling of being a very premium device in this sense, due to the digital crown that does have an advanced operation. This, in conjunction with an excellent quality optical motor, generates a very good feedback when turning this wheel. Remember that it's going to serve you to interact with the system, and it also serves as a button. So it's very nice, and it has a little design detail that says HUAWEI Watch. On the other side of the watch is located the speaker. We will talk a little more about the audio later. But you should also know that this watch is 9.9 millimeters thick, so it's quite thin and very nice. This frame is built in an aluminum alloy, so it also feels very nice to the touch. And regarding the bands, we will find different colors. In this case, I have the green color edition in my hands with the fluoroelastomer material that HUAWEI has handled in several devices that looks like silicone. In this same material will be available in black, pink and white. Although the edition called white color actually seems to be like beige, it is honestly a very nice color. So we have several options to choose from. Although the white edition has the button and digital crown in red, the other editions have a more uniform color without a prominent color. But there is also the gray color edition, which you notice has a completely different band with a nylon fabric design, and also on this part it comes with the brand logo. Also, the clasp will be completely different, simply with Velcro, so it's very comfortable, it's completely breathable, so personally it's the edition that I like the most. And by the way, these bands are interchangeable, so they have a very practical release system through a single button. Although it is not a standard that is used in all watches, so you will have to buy special bands for these models, but it is appreciated that they have this easy exchange mechanism. And we are in front of a watch that does integrate water resistance, specifically 50 meters, so you can go swimming without too much worry with it. And after you get out of the water, you have the drain option, which is going to emit a sound through the speaker to expel all the water that has been stored here. And either way, it's always advisable to shake the watch to try to remove any excess water and keep the device from deteriorating. So in design, really Huawei has come up with a watch with very attractive features. As they all count, the bezels are considerably thin, although it's obvious that with the black display it's going to look even more modern because you're not going to notice the bezels as much. But that's up to you as a user and the type of dial you want to select. So, now let's talk about the screen that integrates this device. We're talking about a 1.82-inch OLED panel. The exact resolution is 480 by 408 pixels, so it has a density of 347 pixels per inch. So even the tiniest text is going to be very sharp. So it's a screen that definitely exceeds what we would expect from a device of this price. In fact, it gives us a maximum peak of 1500 nits, which is pretty good for good outdoor viewing. In fact, the watch does manage its brightness automatically, which is nice. Or manually, you could go as far as turning the brightness up to the maximum. But believe me, it's too high a brightness, so the display does come up to an excellent standard. Obviously, if you use the maximum brightness, the battery is going to drain faster. So it is highly recommended to let the automatic brightness do its job. The watch also allows you to configure how you want the screen to turn off, whether automatically when it detects that you put your arm down, or you can also set a specific duration. You can also make the watch keep its screen on for a certain time, but it also has the always-on display feature, which fortunately does bring its equivalent version. That is, the face will look much like the format when the device is with the screen on. I highlight this because there are other watches in the economic segment where the always-on display face looks very different from the face of the screen on. So in this case, we do find something advanced. As you can see, again, we will have some equivalent dial in all these configurations that we have available. So the watch is advanced in this aspect, although obviously with always on display, also the battery will see a specific detail on this topic. For now, what you should know is that the screen really is very good, also taking advantage of these features of always on display, and obviously it is also able to turn on when you turn your wrist. And in this case, remember that both microphone and speaker are integrated, so it will have sound capabilities as well, something that in the segment is unusual to see. Generally, at this price point, most devices only allow you to control the music on your cell phone, but this watch, in addition to allowing you to control the music on your cell phone, it can play music locally. So it has its own player, you can transfer songs and listen to them directly with this speaker, or you can connect Bluetooth headphones to listen from the watch to your headphones. So it has very good options for everything that has to do with music. If you like to exercise while listening to music, you can connect your favorite accessories to it so you can enjoy them without the need for your cell phone. But if you have your cell phone connected, you will also be able to answer calls. And notice that when you are receiving a call, it gives you the possibility to reject it or answer it directly. And that's it. Without the need for the cell phone, you can answer your call and you can adjust the volume using the digital crown. So the call interface is really very good. It also allows you to mute your microphone or change the volume completely manually. The speaker volume is simple, so obviously you'll need to bring the watch close to your ear to hear it. It sounds good. But it's a feature that I find very useful when you're in the house, which can be a time when you've left your cell phone a little bit away from you. So if you get a call, you don't have to go running for your cell phone, you can just answer it from the watch. It's an unusual feature in this price range. And if your cell phone is Huawei, there is also an exclusive feature for you. In this case, it has the Celia voice assistant, which you can consult directly from the watch for basic commands. Through this voice assistant, you can ask it to open some apps or control certain aspects of the watch. Although it is still a voice assistant a bit limited, but it is good news to know that it is already integrated and that surely with future updates will be improving. For example, let's try something. Open the stopwatch. And as you can see, there it is. It reacts in a good way. You could also tell it to make a call, and to call the assistant with a shortcut, you can hold down the button below. Although remember that this only works if you have a Huawei cell phone. If it's another brand, it's not going to be available. With regards to physical activity monitoring, this watch is going to deliver very well. Within the Activity Logs application, it will give you the basic data that almost all watches give, such as the approximate calories you are burning, how long you have exercised, how long you have been active. It can also count your steps and give you an approximate distance in kilometers, so this monitoring is very well mastered by the watch. But I like that Huawei has taken advantage of this transition to the square screen very well and really gets to take advantage of all the space to show you more information. For example, it can show you how your activity has behaved throughout the week, telling you which days you've met your activity goal and which days you haven't. With respect to the analysis of your heart rate, it can be around the clock. Although the application has a setting where you can select if you want it to be totally constant, which can have an impact on the battery, or it can be intelligent and at certain times it will read your frequency to have an analysis of any way throughout the day. So through the watch you can also see that graph for the whole day. You can also see what your highest peak and your lowest peak has been. And on the mobile app, you can also tell it if you want to be alerted when your heart rate is too high or too low, and you can set the number. And again, through the clock, you can also see what has been trending throughout the week, so you don't need to go to your cell phone to check a little bit more information. This watch also has the new feature that Huawei is incorporating in their more advanced watches, which is arrhythmia analysis. This is to prevent atrial fibrillation, so it's a rare feature even in more expensive watches. That's why it needs to be highlighted. It takes about a minute to do this analysis. It tells you not to move, and it's going to give you an analysis more or less to the beats. And at the end, she tells you whether she has detected something abnormal or not. It is worth emphasizing that it is not a medical device, but as a reference, it can serve very well. In addition, the application is quite intelligent because it can tell you if there is a risk of premature beats or if you already have premature beats, as well as the risk of atrial fibrillation or if it has already detected atrial fibrillation. So it has different levels and it goes quite well. It will also be able to give you a very interesting tracking of your sleep. It's going to give you a score within this app as well as tell you how many hours you were sleeping, and it also shows you different statistics of your light sleep time, deep sleep time, REM sleep time, and also how long you were awake. This information is also shown to you through a graph, and it is able to measure your oxygenation while you are sleeping and give you your heart rate range from the lowest to the highest. In fact, it can also monitor the naps you take throughout the day. So it's great because it does all of this automatically. You do not need to tell it that you are going to sleep, although it does have a special mode that will turn off the screen and all alerts in case you want to tell it manually from what time you want that no one can be bothering you to go to sleep peacefully. But you can enable this setting manually or you can set a schedule. In fact, through the application also has a setting to monitor breathing at bedtime, although that option is turned off by default. Oxygen saturation is another piece of data that it's monitoring around the clock, and I love this because it actually has excellent battery life compared to all the monitoring it does for you. So through the app, you can see a graph of how this data has behaved throughout the day or start the manual measurement. Also through the mobile app, you can configure if you want to receive an alert when your saturation is too low. This watch will also be able to monitor your stress, although this function is disabled by default because when you activate it, it will show you a kind of strange questionnaire, very psychological, where it will ask you different questions about how you feel about life and other things, and after answering this form, you will calibrate the watch to be able to measure your stress much more accurately. Then, interestingly, it will give you the graph again throughout the day and more information about how much time you have had very high or very low stress so that you can make decisions about it. If you need to relax with very specific breathing exercises, it also has an application for this, although I personally don't use it. So, as you can see, it has quite advanced monitoring systems pending only the electrocardiogram that Huawei has available in much more expensive watches, or the body composition analysis that Samsung has available, for example, but in more expensive watches. But speaking now specifically of sports monitoring, you should know that it has many sports to choose from and that it also has GPS to plot your routes if you go running outdoors without your cell phone. Some exercises have animations to help you warm up, or to let you know how to do the exercise. And once you've started the exercise, it also has voice feedback to let you know if you've started. After a certain amount of time, it will tell you that you have been exercising for 10 minutes or something similar. Maybe the distance covered. In short, it can give you this type of feedback through voice, although you can deactivate it. It will also show you through colors the zone in which you are, so you know if your heart rate is high enough to be burning calories or not. It also shows you additional information, and if you swipe from right to left, you can also access your music player, both local and Bluetooth. The only thing to note is that when you enter the exercise app, there is no way to leave it running in the background. So for example, if you got a notification and you suddenly want to go out and check it, you need to pause your workout, and I think that's something that could be improved. Hopefully with some update, they'll allow the exercise app to be able to keep running there in the background. It also has automatic detection, so if you go for a walk, you don't need to tell it that you went for a walk, but after a while it's going to start your count automatically. Specifically, there are 4 exercises, although they can be considered as 6, but several of them are walking. So indoor walking or outdoor walking, it's all the same to me, and it's walking. So that's 4 exercises in total that it can monitor you automatically, which is nice. For women, it also offers an option to track their menstrual cycle, although in this case it doesn't have a temperature sensor or anything to help make the predictions more accurate. So the predictions are simply going to be based on a normal cycle. So it is not that advanced in this sense, but fortunately it does allow you to create your records in the application. It also includes a basic compass to get your bearings right, but it doesn't include a pressure sensor or altitude sensor, which are included on more expensive watches. Lastly, I'd love to see Huawei include a medicine app or something like what we see on the Apple side, but at the moment it's not available, just like a noise sensor would be pretty useful considering it has microphone, which could alert you when you're in too noisy an environment for too long. But those features are not yet available on these watches. Let's now talk about the battery. Huawei promises 4 days of battery life with always-on display, which is pretty good because if you compare it to the Apple Watch, for example, in its most basic edition, it's not even going to offer you always-on display. And from the version that allows you always-on display, it's going to have pretty much a day of battery life. So here it is very remarkable that it offers you 4 days with this feature. And if you don't use always on display, it can give you 7 days of typical use. Then every week you're going to charge it, or you can even go up to 10 days, but with even simpler use. Obviously, the battery will vary greatly depending on each user, but it is a watch that does promise a very extended autonomy. You will not have to charge it every day, but however intense you are as a user, the good news is that you can also get to recharge it very quickly. It integrates fast charging, so with 15 minutes that you put it to charge, it recovers 30% of energy. In 30 minutes, it recovers 50% power. In 30 minutes, it recovers 55% power. And the full charge, it finished in less than an hour, specifically 58 minutes, although this may vary by a few minutes depending on even the weather and other things, but it's definitely a very fast charge. So the recommended thing to do obviously is not to let it discharge to 0%, but when it gets to 20%, plug it in to charge, and you don't even need to wait for it to finish to 100%. So it's a watch that is very convenient in this respect. By the way, charging will be through pins on the back. These pins have magnetic absorption, so it doesn't have wireless charging yet, but it's a pretty convenient charging anyway. Let's talk now about the software that we will find in this watch with all its options. Notice that the navigation is quite simple. On the sides of the watch face, we will find some quick information widgets, and in fact all these widgets we can also swap their position or customize or definitely remove them so that the navigation is exactly as we want it. So I like this customization section. Over here we will also find the weather forecast and quick access to the music control. If we want to change the cover, just press and hold and see that we will have a good variety. Obviously, we can also go navigating through the digital crown. Then we're going to find some really nice features because some of the cover art is also customizable. So you can change some elements like the color or the style. Notice how also through the digital crown we can go changing some parameters of this option, and we can slide to change also some complications, or we could also call it functions. For example, if we want instead of the step count to show us the battery status, we can also do it. So we have very good features in this sense. And once you have finished, you press the button and that's it. The changes are set. So the truth is that it is very intuitive to change covers, and they have a very good level of customization, as you can see. Some can even allow you to change the style of how they show you the time and the functions that are available around it. So it is one of the watches with the most customization with respect to their dials, and especially in this price range, it will be very difficult for you to find something this advanced. So the watch has really pleased me a lot. Notice how in this case it is also able to interact with the digital crown. And through the Huawei Health app, we are also going to be able to manage the dials that this watch has. Notice how they have a special section for this, although I must say that the server is a little slow and can take a little longer than we would like to order each of these covers, but eventually they appear. Several of them are paid, but you can also access the free covers category so you can see a good variety. The truth is, yes, there are many available, some of them nicer than others, but there is a good variety where you could find your favorite cover and just click the install button to have it transferred. So the customization I think is very good, although it does not support an alternative cover store as if we would find on the Apple Watch or watches with Wear OS through the Phaser app. And if you use an iPhone, note that the app gallery will not appear available, but if you are using an Android, note that it does appear access to app gallery from which you can install more applications to this watch. Although the list of available applications is not so varied, but anyway it is appreciated that it is open for developers to create their own applications. For example, you can install a calculator, some games, navigation, some Google Calendar specifically, or Spotify driver. So you can have more tools through developers. Obviously, if you have a Huawei, will also appear available access to the app gallery. Curiously, in this case, even connected to a Huawei device does not appear available Petal Maps option, which is available on more expensive Huawei watches, where you could follow step-by-step navigation from your bracelet. But instead, remember that you can install other applications. So in this case, I installed this application that would allow you to connect to Google Maps, but in this case, it has an additional cost. For some reason, Huawei has not made Petal Maps navigation available on this watch. Hopefully, with an update, they will enable it. Regarding notifications, observe the behavior of the watch connected to a Huawei cell phone. You can have the notifications perfectly well grouped by conversation, and we will notice that you can also respond quickly with an emoji or with some default text. So we have a nice variety of reply formats, although I would love to see a keyboard available, but that's not available yet. And note that it doesn't ask for any confirmation either, so pay attention to which button you're going to press because you're not going to be able to change your decision. Note also that the watch is able to show you traditional emojis like smiles or the most common ones, but the uncommon emojis are not able to show them yet. The stickers will not be able to show them either. It will only show that a sticker was sent to you and that's it. So there are still some sections that could be improved. Now look at the behavior of notifications when you receive them on an iPhone. In this case, it lets you check them. As you can see, they are also grouped, but it does not let you answer with emoji or with a quick reply. So you are a bit more limited on iPhone as there is no way to interact with these messages. However, the behavior with emojis and stickers will be exactly the same as what we saw connected to a Huawei. And finally, let's see how it behaves connected to an Android device. As you can see in this case, the option to respond with emojis or with the quick responses that you can configure through the application does appear. And the behavior with emojis and stickers will be exactly the same. So in notifications, the only device that is more limited is when you are connected to an iPhone. This watch does not yet have Huawei Pay, and it seems that there are still no plans for that feature to be available globally to pay directly with the watch. Although interestingly, in the settings there is a section called Payment where you can access an app called Mcash. However, it's an app that I honestly haven't seen available anywhere to pay. Notice that the device also has a remote shutter option for photography. This shutter will be available when you are connected to a Huawei cell phone and also an iPhone. For it to work properly, we need to open the camera first on the iPhone and then we can press the button. Then notice how perfectly you can get to take the picture, although it doesn't show you the real-time preview, but it also allows you to enable a timer. So I think it's fine as an additional tool. If you are connected to a Huawei Note, that you don't need to open the camera first, but it immediately sends it the instruction to open the camera, although it still doesn't show you the preview. I think that could be improved and the performance will be exactly the same. You can take the pictures or also launch a timer, but it doesn't let you switch between different modes or something similar. And oddly enough, when you're connected to an Android device, that camera shutter disappears. The watch is also going to let you access the weather app. It also has a flashlight that you can adjust the brightness of by simply turning the crown. That's a great thing, but I'd love it if the flashlight had a little timer so it doesn't dazzle your face when you turn it on. So it's a little bit dangerous, and you can also switch modes. You can select another color of the flashlight, and if you want it to be flashing. It also has the calendar app where you can view your events, but you can't add events, nor does it have a reminder app, which I think would be quite useful. It does have an alarm app, and if it is connected to a Huawei cell phone, they can be synced. That is to say that if you set an alarm on your cell phone, when it sounds, you will be able to turn it off from the watch as well. However, this function is exclusive when you have a Huawei cell phone connected. See how the alarm is sounding at the moment, and from the watch you can snooze it or turn it off for good. We will also have available the stopwatch whose operation is positive, and we can also access the call log. In fact, the contacts application is also available, but something curious is that it does not show you all your contact list. So from the Huawei Health application, you must access the list of devices to configure which contacts you want to appear on this watch. Then in the favorite contacts section, you are going to add contacts one by one. I think this could be improved if it gave you access to all your contacts. And in this case, there is a new application that I forgot to mention in the health section called Stay Fit. Through this app, you can keep track of the food you are eating to see if you have a positive or negative calorie deficit. So depending on the calories you are ingesting, it will also tell you how many calories you need to burn, depending on whether you want to stay at your weight, gain or lose. So in this part, you can see all this information, and obviously through the phone, you can add these meals. So on the phone, you can add the food by searching for its name or add it quickly if you already know the information of how many kilocalories you are consuming. It also has the traditional timer with several presets, or you can customize specifically how long you want it to last. And as I said, through the app gallery, you can install more applications. For example, the calculator that I find very curious that it does not have natively, but at least through this additional application you can make it work for all operations, although it does not include a tip calculator as we have seen in some other watches. You can also add these kinds of simple games. The truth is that they are not too complex, but to entertain you at some moments it could be useful. It also has other applications to add some loyalty cards and similar things, but honestly they are still very simple applications. Another app lets you explore places on your travels, access your Google Calendar events, and control your Spotify account. While this app is not official, then with respect to apps, we do have a bit more limited functionality unlike more advanced watches. But in the segment, I think there are not many watches that do offer you the installation of external applications. And another application that Huawei offers you that I forgot to mention in the health section is Health Clovers, where you can manually set some goals that you will be marking throughout the day, and as you meet these goals you will be able to fill your clover. So it can be a good way to create good habits. As you can see, connected to an iPhone, we will practically have the same features available and connected to an Android as well. There are a few things they could still add to make the watch smarter, like a gallery synced with the cell phone, or also add an audiobook feature or Internet of Things control, or even some walkie-talkie feature, which are features we have seen on other watches but not yet present on these. The last feature to show you is to find your cell phone so you can quickly ring it from this quick settings panel. Here you can also lock the screen or directly enter the alarm or some other things, and it shows you battery information. So for the moment, this has been all regarding this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, you know you can tell us about it, and we'll see you next time.